Leggy, Friday morning we read your column on ESPN.com breaking down the Broncos' 4 positional overhauls. And I really loved this piece because I thought it was a great visual representation of just how much this team has changed since that final Week 17 game against the Raiders to today. The offensive line, wide receiver, running back, and cornerback groups are the ones that you pointed out that have had the biggest facelift. So let's go ahead and start with the offensive line. It was a group that featured Garrett Bowles, Dalton Risner, Connor McGovern, Austin Schlottman, and Jake Rogers in the season finale, but it will likely consist of Bowles, Risner, Lloyd Cushenberry, Graham Glasgow, and Jawan James for the season opener against the Titans. Well, we all know in today's NFL that there are highly talented rushers on both sides of a defense, so you really cannot have a lopsided offensive line. How do you think the Broncos look in terms of balance now?
Well, I think they're still kind of working through that. I probably may not have given the given at left tackle for Garrett Bowles if Elijah Wilkinson had not had surgery in recent weeks. So, and we don't know how that rehab's going to go or when they're going to get on the field or any of those things. So I think even more change could be waiting. And, you're talking about a rookie most likely at center. So in terms of that balance, right now they would look more sturdy on the right side in terms of if you're going to be more right-handed in the run game or whatever. But they do need some balance, and people have overloaded them to come at their offensive left. I mean, I talk to defensive coordinators all the time, and they say our target is the gap between Bowles and Risner or the outside shoulder of Bowles. So balance needs to happen, and we don't know how that will look yet.
Balance needs to happen because they can't do 3-man slide protect as they did towards the end of the season last year. And, that's why when Drew Lock came in, things look better on the left side of the offensive line. But I really want to focus on Dalton Risner here because Leggy mentions the rookie center, Lloyd Cushenberry, fine, fantastic athletic prospect. But having Risner next to him, we regularly talk about the excitement for Drew Lock. We regularly talk about the excitement for Noah Fant or my guy Cortland Sutton, right? But Risner has the ability to be the best guard in the game, top 5 guard in the game, and that intelligence level, along with the tenacity, along with the strength, country strong from Wiggins, Colorado, it makes Risner a special prospect. So he can help Bowles to his left, and he can certainly help Cushenberry to his right. So I love the balance, and I specifically love just how much we're seeing and going to see more of from Dalton Risner.
That's a great point by Cecil. Remember, we're raving about Dalton Risner, and all three of us have heard similar sentiments said by people inside that building about him, and he's just going into his second NFL season. I'm expecting a huge jump from him, and I think Cecil and I have talked about in the past what Risner's going to have the effect on Cushenberry, but then Glasgow on the other side. So he's kind of bookend to develop hopefully a little bit quicker because a rookie center could be a little tough, but having both those guys is big. And then that side, Leggy started off with it. I mean, you have your number 1 free agent target from each of the last 2 seasons that are going to be lining up there at the right tackle spot in Jawan James and then the right guard spot. It's almost like you're getting both of them because you didn't get anything from James a season ago. I find this group to perhaps be the group that takes the biggest jump from last season to this season. I know we'll talk about the wide receivers, but this might be the group that we see the biggest change from if everything goes according to the way they'd like it to go. And Mike Munchak is leading the group, which, again, is a nice little ace in the hole to have.
You guys have kind of all mentioned Lloyd Cushenberry a little bit. Just how much of an upgrade is he at that center position?
I think it's a huge upgrade from a technique standpoint and just from a technical and athletic profile standpoint. It's huge. Love Cushenberry, one of my top-rated centers this year. But I guess I'll throw it to Leggy. He's not mean on film. You know this, Jeff. Does that matter?
To me, not. Cecil, through the years, we've talked about the draft a lot. I think at center's a different animal to me. Your center has to be your technician. He's got to be the guy that keeps everybody pointed in the right direction, make all the calls, see the defense before the snap. He is the awareness guy. And if you're going to have, to me, if your guards are heavy finishers, and both the guards the Broncos have now are heavy finishers, your center can be the technician, a quick player. And, hey, when you watch a guy play in the SEC, you're getting a good resume of what he will look like as a pro. It's no small thing to wear the 18 at LSU. I mean, it's named for Matt Mock, but in that program, that tells you that player's reach goes way beyond the field, into the locker room, into preparation, into the weight room. And the fact he carried that honor is a big deal. So you're right. He is a different kind of player. But when I see him on some of the mean guys in the SEC, he is locked on and getting it done.
Well, moving on to the running backs room that consisted of Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman, and Devontae Booker. Now you subtract Booker and you add in Pro Bowler Melvin Gordon. Historically, the Broncos have had a backfield that featured two 1,000-plus yard rushers with Mike Anderson and Tatum Bell. So can Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay be the modern-day version of Anderson and Bell?
I think we have to look at the skill set of Melvin Gordon. There's two things that jump out at me. One, he has been very open about saying that what they did with the Chargers didn't fit his skill set to the best of his abilities. And he was extremely successful running and catching the football in something that apparently he didn't feel comfortable in. I think that shows you might even see a better Melvin Gordon. And then at the same time, I do think there's a plan. They're just not telling anybody. If both Vic Fangio and John Elway both had the same feeling about what they wanted to do and what they were looking for in the backfield, they probably both have a similar plan about how they wanted to go about as well. Now, both running backs say they don't know how they're really going to be used, but I think if you looked at the way Gordon played in the past and how successful he was, and now he thinks this fits him better, I think it's going to be hard for Phillip to get some touches if he's going to get rolling at times.
Well, I think if people think they're not going to split carries with the Broncos, you haven't been paying attention. I mean, they haven't had a 250 carry running back since Reuben Drones. So, if you think they're not going to divvy up the work, you're not paying attention. But I will say the one thing Pat Shurmur said when we all spoke to him earlier this year that needs to stick out even for people who love Phillip Lindsay and what he's about. Pat Shurmur said, if you don't catch the ball out of the backfield, you are not a complete back. And Melvin Gordon has 4 40-catch seasons. You got 2 with 50 catches. It's obvious where they are pointing this position in the new offense.
Yeah, and the history of Pat Shurmur shows that he's regularly a one-back guy, except for one season. 2017 Vikings, everybody look at it. So Alexis brings up Tatum Bell and Mike Anda. Remember when they both nearly had 1,000-yard rushing in the same season. Phillip Lindsay's too good to be a backup, to be your normal reserve runner to come in off the bench. We're not talking about Paul Perkins here behind Saquon Barkley. We're talking about a 2-time 1,000-yard rusher. So if you see something like Jerick McKinnon, Latavius Murray were used under Shurmur in Minnesota, I think that's their plan, as James says, but they're not going to tell us. We'll just have to wait to see it.
And there's one small point to piggyback on what Leggy said. If you talk to offensive coordinators, they'll tell you if you have a running back that catches the football well in the backfield, it expands your playbook. It expands your play calling. It allows you to be more creative. Obviously, a play caller is going to want that at his disposal. So I think Phillip Lindsay, he gets upset if people say this, that he doesn't catch the football that great, needs to show Pat Shurmur this offseason when they get on the field that he is someone that can go out and do that for him.
And, one thing is they can, James, like you're saying, and Cecil, I think you can take Melvin Gordon and put him in other positions in the formation to catch the ball. And now suddenly you can attack base defenses or nickel defenses with Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay in the formation at the same time. So I think there is room for some creativity and still being a one-back offense per se.
Really quick before we go to break, James, how will Royce Freeman fit into all of this?
I think it's going to be tough for Royce because there's a part of this where you look at it and go, he doesn't play special teams. And I think that might be a part where he's going to be needed. And I think he's going to have to find a way to get himself into that mix if he wants to find a way to get some touches. But I do know there's some people that still think he's a good back, but he just hasn't shown it. I think the move of Melvin Gordon is more indicative of Royce Freeman than it was of Phillip Lindsay.